The problem is that hundreds of people, they think that they are not represented for any party.
I think the phases that any country goes through is the same.
I would say precarity is really obvious right now.
The revolution can end when it achieves its goals.
We have to coordinate in Europe, but also at the global level.
For the first time, we are sharing the idea of the square.
People will not stop saying no, and people will not stop being interested in politics.
Alone, we are weak, but in a network, in a group of people, even if it's a small group, we are much stronger.
In Spain, we have, in my opinion, we have three crises now. Social crisis, then we have a democratic crisis, and then we have a national crisis. You know that Catalonia and Basque Country and Galicia, they claim for more power, let's say.
It's very extreme. Like there is less and less middle class. There was a middle class in Egypt at some point, and it has been eroded. And there is a social class that's very, very rich, and the majority very, very poor. And some people live really in inhumane conditions.
I would say precarity is really obvious right now. In a moment where, with the economical crisis, it's really difficult to get a job for everyone in general, and mostly for the young people. And if you get the job, normally it's a lot of times it's a really precarious job, and you have to be thankful for having it.
Poverty is one of the main goals that the revolution happened in Egypt, because we can say that 40% of the Egyptian population is under the poverty line.
Everybody suffered from poverty, precariousness, and police, especially police, and because we were tortured and arrested for no reasons, and it was horrible. So yeah, it had a great effect, and people went to street to say no, enough. We were already done with all of this.
The problem is that hundreds of people, they think that they are not represented for any party. So what they want is to participate more, to build this democracy and this society and the economical system and the political system.
At this moment, there are like some concrete fights that are being very important, and I say important because there's many people involved, and also because it's having a lot of repercussion in the media. And one example of this is the housing problem, and well, unemployment in general, corruption.
Génération Précaire organized actions in companies to denounce internship situations, companies who abuse of this contract. We were very pragmatic, we were not utopist at all. We just wanted to have protections, rights, and a minimum salary as an intern, and also fix the situation of youth unemployment. So when we met the Prime Minister or the Ministry of Labour or universities, we were at the same level. We were discussing with them at the same level. They could understand what we are saying, because we know the situations perfectly in universities, in business schools, and in companies, and we could argue for all our proposals. So that was about the thing with Génération Précaire, which is different from student unions. We don't have any organization. We just have a name. We just have volunteers, and we don't have administration council or stuff like that. We don't have leaders. Everybody is a member, and everybody is can talk to the medias.
And of course, these cuts, these austerity measures that we are suffering now, nobody voted for them. It's not something that it was in a program of a political party or anything like that.
The revolution can end when it achieves its goals. We have 4 goals when we start the revolution: bread, which means income, social justice, freedom, and human dignity. Of course, we didn't achieve any one of those 4 goals till now.
But I think also the main issue in Egypt, and the one that's making the people not able to react to these 3 things, is corruption, because the system itself is a system of corruption.
When we say human dignity, that's also related to freedom and stopping humiliation and torture, etc., etc. I think these are the basic reasons.
Briefly, we want to, as a youth, we want to take the revolution again to the right track, because the revolution now is on the wrong track. So everything now in Egypt is very complicated. We can't say that we are on the right track. We can't say that Egypt is really a democratic country now.
Movement that happened in the squares, Indignados and 15M, the main phrase, the name of the movement was Real Democracy Now. This shows how democracy is seen for a lot of people now in Spain. We are living this crisis where some people, some enterprises, the banks, etc., created a situation that now people is paying for it, and government decided to save the banks instead of saving people, for example.
Of course, if you compare with the Egyptian friends, we have some social protection or social right, but it's been cut last years due to the austerity policies. We have to coordinate in Europe because we have the European Union who makes these policies that rule for all of us, but also at the global level, for instance with the Egyptian people or with people from the Middle East and North Africa who are developing their revolutions now.
For me, I was activist from the first days. I was in prison since the first month in this movement, and a lot of guys who participate in the revolution. It started exactly like in Tunisia, like in Egypt, young guys who are don't follow specific parties, or they don't have specific point of view. Let's say most of them are dreamers who dream of change, and things are changed now to become to this very big conflict in what's going on in Syria today.
How do you see Syria in the short term, like in the coming year or 2 years? What is going to happen from your own point of view?
The Arab Spring, or the movement that we had, is the only thing right that happened in Arab history for last centuries, for sure. The only good thing that really happened and that really could do something for the future. The conflict that we are seeing now, it's a normal result after being under dictatorship for so long, from not having good education in our society, and from the ideologist movement that we were suffering from for so long. So things will take time. Like if we say that about the French Revolution that happened in 1789, and women were allowed to vote in Syria before in France. So it's not one day change. For me, I don't see that the Arab Spring will change things in the next 2 years, 10 years or 20 years maybe. I think it needs generations. It's not just one movement we started today and we want to take the results tomorrow. And also it's hard because in Syria, for me as an artist, I exhibited and before the revolution I exhibited in 4 different countries, and I didn't have the chance to exhibit in Syria itself, in my country, because the thing that I'm talking about is not interested for the regime. The regime also controlled the art, the media, all the society, all the social movements is controlled by the regime. And the thing that we have really different now, that we have something to talk about. I always say in Arab world, artists can talk about sex, religion, or politics. So what artists can talk about? But now people are more interested to see what you are doing about their rights, about their suffering, about what they are doing, about what they need. And they've never had the idea that artists care for them. Most artists, and not only in Syria, they are always following the propaganda of the regime. Like for example, me myself, we are me and a group of other artists and writers. We are publishing a magazine in Syria. It's a very small magazine. We publish one issue every 1 or 2 months. We don't have a date, but we publish it for free inside Syria. And we send it. We make some sort of network that we design the magazine that anyone can print in any printer. It's the normal A4 printer. And we send it to people, so everybody print 10 or 20 copies from this, and they give it to people instead of brochures.
It's also interesting to be here with these Egyptian people because they are now at another point of their history.
The histories of our countries, I think, are quite different, but I think the phases that any country goes through is the same. But maybe in the Middle East we are still in a more baby phase of political change, but the phases are pretty much the same, so it's helpful to learn from countries, for example, who have gone through a lot of rejection of religious institutions, for example, and they see the corruption, and that's the only way they arrive at a little bit more of a separation between church and state. But there's no way to arrive at this point without having to go through kind of a religious and cultural identity crisis in a country.
In Europe, people now are suffering, not like people in Egypt or in the north of Africa, but they started to suffer maybe 3-4 years ago.
For the first time, we are sharing the idea of the square. The square is no longer a place where you can go to for some sun or have a picnic or, just sit there. No, the square has now become an idea. A place where you go, you just get it out of your system, you express your frustration, you say no, it's not going to continue like that, we are seeking change. The Arabs, the Europeans, we are seeking change.
We can make a pressure, good pressure against our systems because, in the world, all political systems in all countries are somehow linked to each other. So I think we can do something common between us.
We can work together in terms of challenging the sufferings of our generation, the youth, because we are faced the same problems that we are facing in Egypt, you are facing in Europe, and vice versa. It's just that it depends on the scale. So if, for example, you have, 10% unemployment, for us it could be, for example, 30 or 40%. So, but it's still a problem that is facing our generation. So we can build a lot together on that. And I keep saying that at the moment what we need is a youth revolution, a global youth revolution, to claim our rights. It's ridiculous, when you find that the youth, they were ready to pay their lives, to make a better Egypt, and still they are completely excluded from the scene, the political scene, the economic scene and everything.
I have worked on different kind of social movements around the world during the last few years, as not directly as a lawyer, but as a journalist. All those kind of movements don't have a real freedom of demonstration, and all those movements have faced repression by the police and by the states in the countries where they happen.
And if you want to build a society, I think that social movements are the best way, like this, horizontal and from the down to the top.
Step by step, of course, we know that we will not have Egypt like European countries, maybe if we say France, Germany, and so in that year or in 2 years, 3 years. We know that it will go up step by step. Maybe it takes 10 years, 15 years, but we must put it on the right track to achieve our goals.
You don't see real change right now. For us, we think there is no change, but at least people will not stop saying no. People will not stop being interested in politics because they never were before the revolution. So for me, this is a great change. And at least now we have this constitution and the elections, presidential elections and blah blah. Okay, it's not what it's what we wanted, but it was not implemented the way we wanted. But at least we've got something. We've got like a base to start from.
No matter how things have turned after the revolution, I'm still very optimistic, full of hope and optimism, because it cannot get worse. It definitely will get better. That's for sure.
My expectation was to, first of all, meet the Spanish group and be more informed about their action, about their problems.
Also, it was quite interesting to know about different European movements and different national and local movements.
We can organize something together. That for me is very, very effective, bearing in mind the current context, the globalization and this feeling that all the world is just affected by one another.
I have a deep belief that the demands are the same. We want freedom. We want a social system that's just.
We feel very much linked to whenever there is anybody going on the street in Tunisia, we'd like to know what is going to happen. We've become very interested in each other's news. We would like it because, if this country succeeds, then, it gives hope. And if this country falls or, it gets difficult for them, then it will be the same for us. And certainly we are suffering from more or less the same things.
I believe in this concept of network because alone we are weak. But in a network, in a group of people, even if it's a small group, we are much, much stronger. And I believe that a small group of people can change and have an impact. They can change the realities we are living and have an impact. I want to see that we will create this network and keep up and grow and learn from the past experiences and have ideas how to face the problems the issues that we have, like with the government, with the state and stuff like that.
As I said, all of the discussions that we had, they inspired us a lot, and they like made us think in new alternatives, as you would say. Even the whole idea of European alternative is a new idea. It's a very, very interesting idea. But we need to take action. We need to be more active and more engaged. Definitely we need to get back to the street, that's for sure.